Both Kwesi and I wanted to start out today in just addressing the unspeakable tragedy that occurred yesterday at Annunciation Church and School. When the horrific news broke, Kwesi and I, a couple others, were in the middle of kind of final roster construction discussion, and we all stopped, and immediately our hearts and minds were with the victims and all that were impacted. For me personally, as a father of four, I happen to have a 10 and 8-year-old. It's impossible for me to wrap my mind around what those parents are feeling, and I'm just absolutely heartbroken for them, and no child should ever be lost to violence in any way. We are praying for all those who were injured and hoping they make full and fast recoveries, and also praying for all those who witnessed the attack, especially all the young kids who witnessed the attack. Understandably, their lives will be altered forever. And lastly, just thinking about the first responders and those hospital workers who stepped up in those moments so quickly and tirelessly to ensure more lives weren't lost. And I know as an organization, I have no doubt we'll show up in the right way at the right time, and that's what we do. That's what we pride ourselves on, and we'll do that for those that were impacted. And the only thing that matters right now is wrapping our arms around all of those who were impacted.
Yeah, just to echo K.O.'s words, we're both up here trying to process this event as fathers, and just want to send our deepest condolences to all the children and the families affected by this unspeakable tragedy. I pray that we don't have to start press conferences like this again. I pray that we don't become numb to these seemingly more frequently occurring things locally and nationally. And I pray that we break some of the divisiveness that's involved right now, that we're in this cycle of inactivity towards being able to find solutions to solve some of these issues. It's really hard to transition to football, but I'm going to attempt to do it. We're here to talk about the roster as we head into week one, but we want to make sure we said those things. As we establish the 53 in our practice squad, we're really excited about where we are as a team. It's a result, accumulation of just a long, dedicated process, exhaustive, intentional, detailed. I always want to start off by thanking the front office staff who works incredibly hard, my executive staff, all the members of the personnel team. August is the time that we're all conditioned ourselves towards the rigors of the NFL season. And it's no different for the players, coaches, and the staff. A lot of late nights in August when everybody else is on their summer vacation. They spend their time here in pursuit of this goal. So I always want to make sure I thank them. To K.O. and his staff, the continued collaboration we have, and that's not just in the decision-making process, but that's also who we bring in, where we're aligned in who we bring in and who we want to coach, how do they fit in, and so that continues to be a great thing here. And lastly, our football operations staff, who provide our players great resources as they, optimize their ability to finish this great training camp that Kevin and his staff put on. So we're excited where we are. We think, obviously there's a lot of hard decisions. I think we have a deep roster, and with that came just some hard decisions. And you never want to trade away players, especially ones that do the right thing and do everything that fit into this culture and be about this culture. But those are things that come with the job, and we have to do them. But we like where we are, where this roster is. I'm excited about the connectivity, the culture. We're excited about the mix of veteran players and young players, and we're excited about the systems, the coaching staff, and how they're going to be able to get the best out of this team.
I'm just jumping in there before we take questions. Did want to announce we voted for captains yesterday. It's fitting in a year where we're going to be honoring the Vikings all-time captain Jim Marshall all season long. Fitting to announce those captains today. Our captains, will have 8 of them: Harrison Smith, Brian O'Neill, Josh Metellus, Justin Jefferson, Andrew DePaula, Jonathan Grenard, Aaron Jones, and J.J. McCarthy. Almost 28, I think 28 players receive votes. We're going to have, in addition to those guys, we'll have our leadership, group that I meet with regularly throughout the year, but those guys are clearly viewed by their teammates in a certain way, and they're definitely appreciated by me in the work we do together to build and maintain and continue to grow our culture. But with that, we'll open it up.
Kevin, just with your relationship with Adam Thielen, what type of relationship did you build in 2022, and how much did it play into wanting him back on this team?
Yeah, my relationship is, it was phenomenal in 2022, and then Adam's one of those guys, and I think I've mentioned it before. I've kept in touch with a bunch of players from that team that either moved on that year or maybe even the following year for whatever the reason. When it comes to whether it's the business of the NFL or just the truth of the NFL, you don't ever forget impacts on you like one that I had with Adam Thielen. And there's so many things about him. It's his energy every day. We felt it yesterday as soon as he arrived. It's his love of football. It's his love of his journey, what his journey specifically means, to our organization. And I know how much he means to our fans. And I know how much he's going to mean to our football team, even beyond getting to bring back a player in such high regard like Adam. It's bringing back a really good football player. And I'm looking forward to getting into it with him as far as what we've really grown and expanded upon since that first year. And even yesterday, he was excited about a lot of those things, and we're talking through a lot of those things. And then, the challenge for all of us is where do we go from here this year with Adam, in a really good group of players, not only at the receiver position, tight end position, running back position, the offensive line, and then obviously our quarterback room led by JJ. So it's going to be a fun journey for all of us, but specifically to Adam, you really felt it from the moment he stepped back in this building yesterday. Not only how much it meant to him, but how much he can bring to this organization.
Kwesi, you talked about the difficult decisions and stuff. I'm actually curious about the flip side with 7 UDFAs making the roster. Just what it's like to see those guys really earn that spot.
Yeah, it's incredible. We talk about a culture built on competitiveness, growth mindset, all those different things. So to really have a true meritocracy where people come in and have a chance to impact and make this team, that's just an embodiment and a signal of that. But our UDFA, all of those guys making the roster, that goes back to a lot of hard work in the spring. Our personnel staff who get in their character and background, they're fit in our system, the coaches who are involved. And I think a lot of the success you have in UDFA is, which guys do the coaches want to coach? How do they fit into your system? When the traits are kind of get to the place in the draft where they're maybe not on the first day or their second day, that really comes from the coaches, from looking from a certain eye and seeing, hey, what can we use, what can we do, and in the collaboration with our personnel staff. So really excited about that, and that's always going to be our pitch. You can come here and you have a chance. It's a true meritocracy, and the Vikings will be that as long as we're here.
Kevin, you mentioned keeping in touch with Adam a little bit over the last couple of years. Does that do anything in terms of kind of keeping that door open for a guy to come back? I know it's a football decision, but does keeping that relationship intact help with that process at all?
I haven't really thought about it like that, but it might. I think it's just a matter of, regardless if a player is going to return back here or not, or however long that I get to coach them. Those are the types of things that you find yourself thinking about, as much, if not more, than the wins and the losses and things, because truly there's I'd like to think that I was put in this profession to have more of an impact than just winning and losing. We know that's what our league is. That's what it's all about. But in the meantime, if you can form those types of relationships, it's really important to me. And I'm thankful these guys are willing to have them with me, because that's what makes my job so fulfilling every day. But in regards to that, I don't know, Ben. I think it definitely is something. I know exactly who we're bringing back to our organization, but I knew that, didn't take long in 2022 to know exactly what he's all about.
What drew you guys to Carson Wentz?
Yeah, Carson, is a guy he's played a lot of football, coming up on almost 100 starts. Clearly, I was in the NFC East early on in his career where, he had some real dominant times there playing for the Eagles. And then as his journey's kind of gone on from there, I think he's been exposed to some really good systems, both, last year in Kansas City and previously in LA. I think he's really smart. Clearly, as you guys have seen, the physical presence of a guy that big and strong, and that applies to how he's played and had success in this league. But also there's an above the neck, quality to him where I think we'll bring him in and try to get as comfortable as we can with him, which is already off to a great start. He's doing his ability to come in and pick up things quickly, apply some of his previous, things he either knew from other systems or just his ability to pick things up quickly is a huge bonus. And then I think the experience of a guy that, was drafted high and had a lot of success throughout his career, that bodes really well for JJ and Max in that room as well. And I think we've got a complete room. I feel great about that room and our ability to grow together in that room throughout the season.
I guess the obvious question there is, would you, along those lines, why was he not here until now? Why was he not signed earlier? Or
I wouldn't classify that as obvious in any particular way, just because, we acquired Sam Howell, with a mindset on what that could look like. And I thought Sam, throughout the spring and the summer and training camp, I thought he improved. I thought he did a lot of really good things. And ultimately, it's more than just looking at it just as one particular move, but where we ended up with our quarterback room, like I said, the ultimate goal was to feel how we feel right now. And I've got a lot of confidence in what we do here at that position to take a guy with such high capacity mentally, Kevin, and then also the experience that he does have. We've got some experience with bringing in some quarterbacks that had previous experiences elsewhere and finding a way to maximize in a short amount of time a level of comfort in the system, and then ultimately doing the things we need to do, if that player were to play significant snaps, doing the things that help them have success, and that would be our plan.
Kevin, when and why did it become apparent that Max could make the roster, not just be like a practice squad?
Yeah, I think, we had the benefit of seeing Max and getting to know him throughout the process that started really 2 years ago with the way he had the ability to throw at the previous year's Gopher Pro Day, and then to get to see him again after getting to watch him play. And we have some great relationships with PJ and his staff. So you learn a lot about the makeup of the player. But from day one, it was obvious his capacity mentally, and then also, how he took very quickly to how he could apply some of the techniques and fundamentals that we were training and coaching to productive reps in a very short amount of time. And then he was able to carry that over this training camp. And then, Max had some quite a bit of snaps in the preseason, and it wasn't always perfect. It wasn't always real clean around him. And that's every quarterback playing at certain times of preseason games. But he found a way to move the team. He found a way to make a throw. He found a way to apply, principles at the position that we deemed to be pretty positive. And at the same time, I think Max is one of the hardest working guys, young guys that I've been around. And we got a few of those in the quarterback room. So I think getting the type of room we have now together, it's about growth. It's about improving every single day and really feeding off of one another as we approach the season.
You guys have 4 corners on the roster at the moment. How do you feel about the depth there, and what's kind of the plan to handle that position?
Yeah, it's a position, obviously we have the ability to play big nickel and different things like that. So we look at that group with that versatility, but, we're able to bring back Fabian, who we view as a, NFL caliber guy who can come in and play a lot of snaps for us. And we'll always be mindful throughout the season to look at different opportunities.
trading Harrison Phillips, I'm just curious what went into that decision, how much of it's trying to balance just the age of the roster looking forward, and then also with that, how difficult of a conversation is that?
A lot of that is, you bring in some guys to that room and you're looking at the plates. Throughout the conversations for the spring and the training camp, I'm always trying to be ahead of what could possibly come. And then you look at a really deep D-line room and thinking about a possible rotation, different things like that. Just trying to maximize our resources in the best way we can and thinking about it through that lens. We want to be fair to the Vikings, but also to Harrison. And we thought just that this was the best outcome and best opportunity. But, like you said, he was the first free agent brought in here. I remember the emotion he had when he signed his contract, a big moment for a kid growing up and playing this sport. So to be the person to have to call the agent, and Kev calls the player first, but then he comes and speaks with me, it's, I'll let Kev speak to those conversations, but those are hard. These relationships are real, they're not transactional. So when you have to reverse them in that manner, it's tough. But I wouldn't be doing my job as general manager of the Vikings if I let that, dictate, what actions we do. But, it's certainly a hard part of this job.
Yeah, and, kind of like what I said post-game down in Tennessee. I know, a few of you guys weren't there, but what I mentioned was just Harrison is in that category of, the relationships you build, mean the most to you. And that was one of the hardest conversations I've had, and it's because of how much I care about the player, but more importantly, what Harrison has poured into the Minnesota Vikings. So I do, I agree with all of the aspects of the move, and I think Harrison, once he got a chance to step back and really understand the dynamics to it and the positive outcome it could be for him, I have no doubt that he's going to make it that. But it doesn't make those initial conversations any easier for sure.
What does JJ being voted a captain mean or say to you?
Yeah, I think it's just these guys are, you can't fool your teammates, and that can work in a positive way and a negative way. But I think these guys have just watched the way he's worked, not only this spring and training camp, but I think it goes back beyond that during his, what was, throughout the time of rehab and kind of dealing with having the game kind of taken away from him, getting to step on the grass every day and play. I think they've just seen a guy that works. You guys have heard me talk about some of the unique kind of personality traits and qualities that he has that I think bodes really well, in this day and age in the leadership department in an NFL locker room and on an offense with a lot of veteran players. It's always a great exercise for me because I can have a perception all I want of players and how their teammates may view them. But, when you do it the way we do it and the players get to decide, those votes and those results normally speak pretty loudly about what the team thinks of certain players, and JJ is definitely one of them.
Kwesi, how challenging were the talks with Carolina to get that trade across the finish line?
I don't want to say the word challenging. Ultimately they have their best interests they're trying to protect. We have ours. That's just the dynamic of those deals. And no matter if the call doesn't go the way you want it to go or it does, I always try and hang up the phone and respect that they're trying to do the right thing by their team, just like an agent's trying to do right by the player. So I wouldn't use that word. Just, a negotiation, just an opportunity to be creative and find solutions. We're ultimately able to do that. I'll keep any of the specifics to that to me and Dan.
You hadn't seen Harrison Smith for a while during the time at the end of training camp. Is he good to go now, or in terms of his health?
Yeah, I have a kind of a full plan to make sure I update you guys next week, and then the full injury report will come out. But in regards to Harrison and any other players that have been, dealing with things outside of really CJ and Tyler Batty, who we officially have put on the designated for return injured reserve, both those guys dealing with, minor knee injuries, and we feel good about their chances of being able to help us sooner rather than later. But in regards to Harrison or any other player, we'll update you guys next week, and ultimately the official injury report will be out Thursday.
Last couple questions.
Why do you see more trades, do you think, now in modern football? It seems like it was always free agents, and you wait to see who got cut, who was on the waiver wire, and now teams are proactive. You've got Hawkinson, going back to Hawkinson, et cetera. Is it just that people have figured out strategically to be proactive and to make moves, or?
It's a great question. I'm not particularly sure. I guess I wasn't, in this chair back then when I guess they happened a little bit less. But, I think people are always mindful of that, when you trade a draft pick for a player, it's that known versus the unknown, right? And I think people have probably grown just more comfortable with that through time, just the different, whether that be different sports or different things that are publicly known. I think that the collective wisdom of those types of things has kind of grown as a football community. I think relationships between GMs has probably increased in that sense. We're all at the combine together. We're all at these different areas. So, when you pick up the phone and you want to make a deal with somebody, it's nice to have spoken with them, been in a place with them, have a rapport with them. So those could be things contributing to that. But ultimately, I'm not too sure as to why they picked up in their way.
This could be for either of you guys, but how do you feel about special teams, the 2 returner spots, punter, just special teams as a whole?
Yeah, I think, we're excited about Miles Price, some of the things he was able to do. I think there's some young players where you start to feel a sense of confidence from them. And Miles, it didn't take long to feel that. I would probably classify it as, rookie minicamp, regardless of how he arrived here. That's a player that's very confident and ultimately knows the role that we're looking for him. And I think we feel pretty good about Ty Felton and Miles and just the variety of guys either on our roster and or practice squad that can step up and play those roles when required. But I think that's been a point of emphasis, not only just the returners, but I think it's the other 10 guys that are on the field with him as well. That I feel very good about Matt Daniels and his special teams group because of, I think, the depth of our roster. And that's not just the 53, that's also the 16 guys, plus Max that we have as our international player as well on the practice squad. We've got a very deep football team, in my opinion, and that bodes really well for that phase because you want to always take an approach with offense and defense in a way where that the amount of snaps and the volume of snaps are going to matter there. But we've seen time and time again over, I know my first 3 years here, impactful plays in that phase and areas we can improve that we're definitely attempting to do that. And I think we've got some players now, good young players with some skill sets that we're hoping can really take off.
Last one. Kevin, when you look at Adam coming back, obviously he's getting to be here, but how do you see him fitting into your offense once Addison's back? When you have, obviously they probably are 1 and 2, he drops to a third. Where do you see him fitting in this offense?
Yeah, I think the best part of what we've built here is knowing how versatile we want our number 1 receiver to be in Justin. Justin plays outside, he plays inside, he motions to and from pretty unique formations at different motion tempos, and there really is no such thing anymore as whatever letter they're tied to, whether it be the X, the Z, the F. Whatever letter that is almost just for kind of the chalkboard in a lot of ways of they've got to be able to line up as a single receiver. They've got to be able to line up with Justin in a stack in a 2x2 formation. They got to be able to line up with TJ, away from the passing strength in many ways. And there's really not, as crazy as it sounds, I'm not sure we have very many variations of formations to come up with. We're surprisingly, we're surprisingly pretty close to maxed out there. But I think the versatility that Adam has shown, not only just in 2022 in year 1 of the system, but then as he's, took on learning a new offense and a new system, there's some just great tape of him doing all of the things that we're going to need him to do for us. And, I look at it, our confidence level in Jalen Naylor, as well as just Jordan Addison might have had one of the best training camps out of anybody on our roster. So when he returns and hits the ground running, I view it as a really good problem to find roles and responsibilities for that room, knowing that we're going to be able to, not only have depth for the season, but we're going to be able to navigate these first 3 weeks the right way as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.